45 to 50k a week, or around 13.5 to 15k a week in gross profit is exactly what Miles from Midland Solar was seeing within the first 2 months of working with each other. I'm going to talk to you about exactly what happened, how we helped him move forward in the able to pay market, and ultimately get over what was arguably one of the most stressful times in his business. Now, what happened to Miles was the same thing that happened to a lot of companies in the Eco4 scheme. If you're unaware of what that scheme is, it's a government-funded scheme. And when the Eco funding scheme changed and his funding got pulled, his pipeline collapsed overnight, not sort of slowly dried up, literally collapsed overnight. He was used to working within the funded market, and he had to now basically branch out into the able to pay market if he wanted to stay afloat and actually keep his business ticking over. Now, like a lot of you, it wasn't even just a case like, we can't do any jobs anymore. It was also, there were previous jobs that had been paid out for materials and labor. The energy companies hadn't actually funded, which means they're not only sort of in a situation where they can't progress anymore, but they're also missing revenue from previous jobs that they had already paid for. So a lot of companies, similar to Midland Solar, are sort of in a hole. And on top of that, they've never worked in the able to pay market. They don't know how to sell it. You know, it's a completely different sort of industry to get into. For a lot of people, they were forced to. It caused a lot of people to panic and do things differently. So when I sat down with Miles, it was very much like a consultation of, you're currently here, this is what we need to do. And I'm going to walk you through exactly what that conversation was, what we did, and where he's currently at right now. Now, I remember my conversation with Miles, and as you can imagine, it's a very stressful time to go through. But when the pipeline is dried up, there's no revenue coming in, there's no predictability, you cannot scale your business like that. So to essentially keep the lights on, they had to essentially start subcontracting for other companies. It's the same situation that a lot of other companies were into. Other companies who have been around in the private market had an overflow or an excess of work that they needed to work with other companies to actually do the installation. Problem with that is you are doing 99% of the legwork. You're essentially giving the margin to someone else. Very easy to fall into a trap. And before you know it, you're 6 months, 12 months down the line, and all you do is subcontract. When you want to build a business, you want to have people coming to you for work so that you get the actual full margin. Now, there is a place for subcontracting. Obviously, in this case, it was very much sort of like patching that sort of gap. One of the other main issues that Miles was facing, he had skilled laborers and a skilled team of people who he had built up over the last couple of years, who unfortunately, because the pipeline dried up, there's no work to give, but they're people at the end of the day, they have to make money. A lot of the actual laborers, and you'll see when you look back on, you know, when the actual funding got pulled, I think it was earlier this year, sort of back in January, there were so many people on the open market looking for work, so many people, because the companies couldn't afford to keep them up because there was no work coming in. Now, the instinct for a lot of installers during this situation is to just panic, you know, throw money at ads, buy leads, subcontract, do anything you can to patch that hole, which makes sense. It's not sustainable and it's going to hurt you, not even in the long run, I'd say in the short to mid-term. Quick one, just before we get into essentially what we did and why it worked so fast, we're offering a free SEO audit. If you wanted to get a bit more clarity in terms of where you're ranking, what you could be doing to actually generate more inbound inquiries, just book a call. The link is in the description. No pressure. I'll just give you some solid advice as to what you could do. So here's pretty much what we did with Miles once his pipeline was in that sort of state, and why it worked so quickly. One of the first things that we needed to do was actually get him a proper, able to pay private website. Before, it had too much information about the eco funding scheme. If someone lands on that site, they might think they can get solar for free, which is not the case anymore. And you don't want to be generating leads like that in that market. Having a templated website that's built on WordPress or Wix can actually really damage the rankings. Having a custom coded site is infinitely better. So that's what we went ahead and did. One of the next things that we did was get the Google business profile optimized and fixed immediately. And then the next task was building out those location pages and service pages. So he services around the Midlands, right? So there's so many towns and so many villages that we needed to build him location pages for. So if someone is in Wolverhampton, if someone is in Coventry and actively searching for solar panels in those areas, he needs to be showing up. And we did that across 50 to 100 different pages within the first month. Now that he's in the able to pay market, it's important that customers know exactly what he does. And it's also important for Google's algorithm to actually make sure that they know what he does, so that they can actually be aware of the fact that he's just trying to help people and service people. So we need to get all of the battery storage offerings on his page, EV charging, solar installation. Does he do commercial? Does he do domestic? We need to make that extremely clear on his site, so that Google knows that is just trying to help people and actually get some ranking above his competition. And one of the next things that we did was plug him into our backlink network. Now, again, backlink sounds like a scary term, but it's really not. If 100 people are trying to rank for solar installers in Coventry, the way that Google determines who to rank above who is how many other websites are talking about you. You know, if you're being spoken about from local news articles or accreditation bodies or distribution partners or manufacturers even, they're going to look at that and be like, damn, these guys are credible. So they start ranking you above your competition. It's like if you're an up and coming rapper and Drake gives you a shout out, right? That's exactly what we did for Midland Solar. It was just a case of, we've got all of these tools now. We've got the service pages, we've got the location pages, we've got the brand new website up and running, we've got the backlink network, we've got the Google business profile fully optimized. Creating an ecosystem where Google's recognizing Midland Solar now is the authority in the local market to be able to pay solar installs. So making sure that if someone lands on the site, which they will be because we're generating loads of traffic now, it's a case of just making sure that when they actually see the page, it's easy to inquire. So removing all that friction. So easy get a quote button, easy fill out an inquiry, easy contact us forms, just so that whenever someone lands on the site, they can inquire really, really easily. There was no waiting around. Every single component of what we built to generate signal extremely fast. Now, this sort of infrastructure is so high level, and it's the type that takes a lot of SEO agencies 6 to 12 months or more, especially when they have to create those backlink networks from scratch. And we had it live and indexed in weeks. And that is pretty much the difference from working with someone who is strictly working in renewables with Generalist SEO agency. Now, just to give you an idea on results, 20 organic inquiries a week consistently. And again, these are not shared leads. They found Midland Solar directly. From those leads, he's now averaging 5 sales per week, extremely consistently. So you're looking at about 45 to 50K a week in revenue. Now, again, that's from zero. That's not from a slow build. That was from having a dead pipeline. You know, there was no ads, there was no subcontracting. There wasn't even a sort of race to the bottom because all of these people found Miles directly. Now, at the start of this video, I said that Midland Solar were doing 45 to 50K a week, about 13.5 to 15K in gross profit. And look, to be fair, not every situation is identical to theirs, but the processes remains the same. Once you have that foundation, once you activate the backlink network, and once you remove all of the friction so that when people land on the site, they can inquire really easily, the results arrive as a byproduct. So again, if you want to know what this looks like for your business and how you can actually achieve similar results, maybe even just make a few tweaks so that you can start getting some more inbound inquiries through the site. Let me know, book a call, and we can have a proper chat and see how we can help. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed the video and I will see you in the next one.